Hello, you're watching Leader Speakeasy with me, Luqman Haris.
And me, Rozina Aziz.
Rozina, joining us virtually this time, is the co-founder and CEO of Metamorphosa, a former news, media and corporate woman who now mentors, coaches, trains and consults global leaders and entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Luqman. Today we will have a conversation on leading in developing Malaysia's capital market. First, an introduction on our guest.
Datuk Umar Swift has more than 25 years of experience in the areas of banking and financial services. Once the CEO of Gas Malaysia and the head of the Enterprise Financial Services Group of Maybank, Datuk Umar then went on to become the CEO of MAA Group Berhad, where he also assumed the role of CEO of Malaysian Assurance Alliance Berhad, or now known as Zurich Insurance Malaysia Berhad. Today, on top of being the CEO of Bursa Malaysia, he also sits on the board of the Securities Industry Development Corporation and the Capital Market Development Fund appointed by the Ministry of Finance. The past 2 pandemic-laden years have seen capital markets go into a free fall. Although improvements have been seen, much work is required, not just to restore Malaysia's capital market to what it once was, but also to ensure it grows from strength to strength. How does he lead in developing Malaysia's capital market?
Datuk Umar, welcome to Leader Speakeasy with Luqman and Rozina. How are you doing?
Thank you for inviting me to the show, Rozina and Luqman. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you as well for that wonderful introduction.
Our pleasure, Umar. Let's kick off by discussing your leadership mantra. Rosie, go ahead.
Datuk Umar, you have wide and deep experience in leading the banking and financial sectors. Share with us your leadership high point as well as perhaps the lowest point. What is your leadership mantra to achieve success, and what did you learn from, the low point?
Thanks, Rozina. I think the key is when we think about high points and low points, it is a continuum, and leadership is a journey. So very much as we take on new challenges, we have difficulties, some decisions are not perfect. You have to learn from them, and more importantly, you just keep on bouncing back. It's always, as you often see, it is about stepping back up, learning from the experience, and more importantly, working with the team that's with you at the time, bearing in mind I've had different roles over the years, to overcome those problems. Now, as you go forward, some things work better than others, and that's what, we'll all always revert to type, for want of a better term. I like to lead from the front foot.
Many young leaders aspire to follow your footsteps, Dato', and reach the pinnacle of leadership success as you have. Did you have a mentor who helped shape you as a leader, and what would be your best advice to young leaders who want the same for themselves?
Luqman, I had many mentors over the years. All have given me sound advice all through my career, and it is important to bounce ideas off mentors who are not embedded in the business or what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, because they give you that different perspective. Your board, your senior management, as you work your ranks up, they also play a key role and can be mentors and give you a slightly different perspective of the problem you're looking at. Too often, we have to be very mindful of that risk of groupthink. We all sit together as management and we decide this is the best idea. To actually reach out to a mentor or an independent board member and actually bounce that idea off and say, this is what we're thinking. What are we missing? We need to be a little bit more humble, not arrogant, and listen to advice. At the end of the day, though, you have to recognize when you make a decision, it is your decision and you have to take responsibility for it.
So over the global stock market fell when the COVID-19 pandemic affected 2020, and subsequent recovery in volume and value has been uneven. How is the direction of Bursa Malaysia, and what were your personal leadership challenges during those uncertain times?
The key is uncertain times. Markets like predictability, Rozina. And so our main focus at the exchange was staying open. And what did it take to stay open? The pandemic was new. It was a new disease. We weren't sure what was going to happen. We had new SOPs. Who could be in the office? Who couldn't be in the office? What did it take to work remotely? So the challenges were around keeping the team safe, keeping the market open and readily available so investors could trade, and then working on how to pivot to working from home. And I think that was a challenge shared by many businesses in Malaysia. And what does it take? And bearing in mind, there was a time we were very mobile in the capital market, engaging offshore, bringing investors in. And so there was a whole new shift to virtual. That was efficient, but then we're also dealing with the impact of COVID or on the economy and supply chain disruption. What did it mean? Making sure the team was able to go about their day to day.
And despite the easing of COVID measures and the reopening of international borders, concerns over things like the Russia-Ukraine conflict negatively affects equities markets. Whilst lagging behind regional bosses, Bursa Malaysia has managed to attract foreign flow of funds due to low price earnings ratios and also higher commodity prices. This will likely be negated by EPF withdrawals, a move seen as a precursor to a possible general elections in the second half of this year. What does this mean for Bursa Malaysia over the next year, Datuk Umar?
Thanks, Luqman. I think the key is perhaps, that theme about, which I just touched on before, markets like certainty. Now, clearly, the conflict in Ukraine, or the Ukraine-Russia war, it provides uncertainty. Markets don't like it. Equity markets respond accordingly. Commodity market prices are now, particularly for edible oils, grains, aluminium, are all beginning to peak because Ukraine in particular is a large supplier of wheat, as is Russia and so on. Now, I think what that then does is brings in that concern of global inflation. Yes, Malaysia has enjoyed tremendous inflows over the last quarter, some 6 billion ringgit. We're back on the map, so to speak. It has been some time since we've enjoyed these inflows. And as you mentioned, Luqman, it was because we're seen as a value play. But more importantly, it is we're a commodity stock market. Now, as we go forward, there is tremendous liquidity still in the market, as witnessed by the performance of recent IPOs. And I think the key thing is looking at how do you delight the investor, that call to action. Now, from a Bursa perspective, we run an exchange, but the relationship is not direct with investors, but we're looking to try and actually reach out while acknowledging the role of brokers and institutional brokers in the marketplace and listen to what investors need and provide what they need to make better and informed decisions and have that confidence to be in our market.
There is pressure in the US and other large economies to address the instability in supply chain, which you mentioned earlier, and that's by bringing manufacturing home or closer to home. In terms of regional strategy, I think China has been pursuing a shift to high-tech, high-value manufacturing, while countries like Vietnam and now Cambodia are winning in the low-tech, low-value sector. With Malaysia stuck somewhere in the middle, share with us what that means to companies listed here, especially for players involved in semiconductors and export-led manufacturing. What are the implications for you in ensuring future growth in Bursa Malaysia?
Thanks, Rozina. I actually think supply chain disruption is a wonderful opportunity for Malaysian manufacturers because we are an intermediate manufacturer for finished goods. Now, clearly, this theme, bringing manufacturing home, yes, it exists, but the reality is it is costly. Now, Malaysia is well positioned geographically, we have talent, and more importantly, and this is what I have been encouraging, particularly the larger SMEs as well as my PLCs, is to embrace ESG. It is very topical post-COP26, but the reality is with supply chain disruption and diversification of supply chain, Malaysian manufacturing can insert itself into supply chains which would otherwise be unavailable previously. And how will we do it? One is we are smart, we're well located, but more importantly, we have to begin insinuating ourselves, putting ourselves into green supply chain. There is a global move towards greening of supply chains. Now, Malaysian companies have to make that investment. And there's a lot of conversation, is it a cost or is it investment? Actually, it's future-proofing your business. And so it's so fundamental. We at the Exchange, of course, have declared we will be carbon neutral by this year, and we intend to be net zero by 2050. And we're working towards that. And we're encouraging and reaching out to PLCs as well as SMEs because we want the whole, so we want to see supply chains greened, and then Malaysia has the opportunity to pivot away into a high value around the green economy. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, if I may.
All right. Dato', we'll go for a short break. Leader Speakeasy with Luqman and Rozina will be back with Datuk Umar Swift, the CEO of Bursa Malaysia. Don't go anywhere.
You're back with Leader Speakeasy with Luqman and Rozina in conversation with the CEO of Bursa Malaysia, Datuk Umar Swift.
All right, Datuk Umar, foreign funds and investors are focused on innovation and technology, including blockchain, which has been disrupting the financial services industry. They pay premiums for leading players globally. Now, Malaysia is a laggard in this regard. How might we future-proof the market and ensure future growth and competitiveness through innovation and high technology, perhaps marrying the two worlds? What must be in place for us to be on the right trajectory?
Thanks, Omar. Wonderful question again. I think the key thing is they were paying a premium.
Right.
We've seen a little bit of a move in the market. Now, with a wry smile, yes, we are jealous of tech stocks. We want tech stocks on Bursa Malaysia, and we want to see that pivot to technology. It is all about DFI. Now, I think we have to recognise the maturity of our market vis-a-vis some of these larger markets. Now, it is about an investor base. And from the efforts with SC, the Exchange, MDEC, as well as MOF, we want to build, you have to build an ecosystem. So it's not just a tech listing. It is about bringing entrepreneurs, funding entrepreneurs and bringing them to market, and it's about size and ensuring there is an investor base that can take that full value. Now, clearly, premiums were being paid offshore, and as an entrepreneur or a business owner, you want to maximise the valuation of your company and you head overseas. Now, we're working with various stakeholders to actually plug that gap, to build the infrastructure domestically, while also engaging institutional investors who are perhaps more comfortable with property, retail, what they're more familiar with, about, well, how do we value new tech stocks? Where does it work? How do we get the valuations that we're seeing offshore? And how do we bring that value to Malaysia? Now, of course, initial step would be to pursue secondary listing, and as well as building that whole ecosystem to provide that community to actually grow Malaysian entrepreneurs and then take them for listing to Bursa Malaysia.
So the question was, Dato', Bursa Malaysia saw 30 new listings in 2021, a jump of 58% from the 19 IPOs recorded in 2020, the year before. So with Malaysia-originated unicorns like Grab seeking listing in the US and companies like Qasem likely to follow suit, do you have plans to introduce double listing, or is there a strategy to attract such players to list here in Malaysia?
Now, no. We're not going to have dual status shares. One share, one vote. It is more of a governance issue from our perspective. We're very responsive, we listen, but differential voting has its place. It is accepted in some markets, but that's not a philosophy that we have in the Malaysian context. Now, that being said, we have, in our mind, we have large institutional shareholders who will support good quality stocks. And so it gets back to perhaps my previous answer. We were looking at the capital continuum, if I may, the role of the VC fund, the role of human capital. So we have to build a conducive environment to actually ensure and support and nurture. And so it is, if you like, an all of government response, for want of a better term. So we actually are working also with HRD Inc. to provide training around ESG, to provide support and learning and mentorship for entrepreneurs as they come through. And so this is the key part. So to build a viable segment, and as we look at other markets, it is not just the market per se, it is the whole ecosystem around that market that makes the difference, if I may.
Right. And speaking about governance, there's a need to ensure strong controls in terms of governance, financial reporting, and also speculative stocks. At the same time, you talk about delighting the market. So how do you balance those priorities and make equity investment more accessible to new clients, such as women and also Gen Z?
It gets, thanks, Luqman. It gets back to this theme of delighting the customer. Now, who is the customer? Customer is everybody that we deal with. Retail investors, institutional investors, yourself, Rozina, and Luqman. You are my customers, be it through EPF, be it directly. We want to be able to have more of your share of wallet by giving you what you need. Now, so what we have to do is remove the objection and make it easier. Now, one of the key things from a retail perspective, and we've seen this resurgence of strong retail interest in the market, is access to information. And so what we're now doing and investing is looking at, we're actually looking and using data, much often termed, data with analytics, to look at the behaviour of investors and looking at the needs that they have. And the theme has been around better information. So at the exchange, we have Bursa Marketplace. If you log on to Bursa Marketplace, you'll actually see write-ups on different companies, calls to action. We don't recommend, we provide information. And on top of that, you'll have Bursa Academy, where we actually provide bite-sized learning, where you can learn how to engage on the stock market. What does it mean? If you like, demystify it, because there's no mystery to it, as well as working with our broker partners to provide platforms to make it easy to trade.
Rosie?
Datuk, we'll now move on to the fun quick fire questions. Only 20 seconds to answer each question.
So in this segment, our viewers get the rare chance to get to know you up close and personal. So business aside, let's get to know you personally, Datuk. Only 20 seconds for each question. Let me start. You seem like a pretty cool, hip, smooth guy, especially for someone who leads a national boss, the Bursa Malaysia. I don't think you fit the profile, and I say that in the nicest way. So if you are not a big shot CEO of Bursa Malaysia, or any company, in fact, in Malaysia, if you were not doing this, what would you have been doing?
You know, I like food, clearly. I might be a chef.
A chef? Interesting. Okay. Rosie?
So away from food, in terms of leisurely pursuits, what would be your guilty pleasure, food aside?
Guilty pleasure. I like to go swimming. Open water swimming.
That's a guilty pleasure for you? Swimming?
It takes a lot of time away from the family, I'm afraid. So my definition of open water swimming is flying somewhere quite far away and swimming 4 or 5 kilometres in the sea.
Right.
It's a private pursuit. It's my time.
What's the one thing that people don't previously know about you that you can share with us now?
Oh. I think everyone knows much about me. What you see is what you get. There is no hidden depths to Umar.
Rosie?
They say it's lonely at the top. What's your take on that?
That gets back to the question of mentoring, Rozina. I mean, it is lonely if you want it to be lonely, but you have to remember your decision is your decision and it's no one else's decision. Don't make the decision someone else wants you to make, because at the end of the day, you will be responsible for it. That is just a truism, and I encourage everyone to live by it.
A big thank you to Datuk Umar Swift, the Chief Executive Officer of Malaysia for Conservation, on the challenges of leading to develop Malaysia's capital market.
Be sure to join us on Leader Speakeasy with Luqman and Rozina for conversations on leadership as the country and the world strive to bounce back from the pandemic. I'm Luqman Haris.
And I'm Rozina Aziz, wishing you the very best in your career, business and leadership journey. Stay safe, stay resilient.